Welcome back to Manufacturing Mental Health Podcast with Marilyn. This is episode number 2. I'm Marilyn Rosa-Green, psychotherapist, executive coach, and former manufacturing HR strategist. This is the space where we connect the dots between mental health and leadership and why your well-being is the foundation of your success. Today, we're talking about one of my favorite frameworks, moving from autopilot leadership to grounded leadership. And I look at this as emotional autopilot or being on autopilot emotionally. So many leaders don't even realize they're operating on autopilot because that's part of the issue of being on autopilot is that you are not completely aware or you're choosing not to feel things too deeply or focusing more on in the moment, meaning what's in front of you, what's on the surface. And over time, this contributes to us reacting instead of responding, hustling instead of leading. And in this episode, we'll define what emotional autopilot looks like, what grounded leadership looks like, and how to start making that shift. Okay, guys, so just a quick note, this podcast is for educational purposes only. It's not a substitute for professional therapy or medical advice. If you're struggling with your own mental health, please reach out to a licensed professional in your area. And remember, listening here does not create a therapist-client relationship. I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive in. First, I just want to tell you really quick, when I was working in corporate HR, when I was on site, I would see this in action. I was definitely, honestly, one of those people too. I just had this mental checklist and I would do things because they were supposed to be done. And there was a lack of intentionality. It doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you a robot or anything like that. Not that robots are bad, but isn't man, that's not a human. That's not human. So, anyways, something where you just show up and you go through the motions and you never really feel truly connected to the moment. That's what it seemed like to me in on the surface. Like they could never slow down, they never could slow down enough to have a genuine, intentional moment to connect. And there was definitely nothing about any kind of inspiration or purpose, which is something that I think as I moved through the corporate world, I yearned all the time. I was looking for that mentorship. I was looking for that connection at work. And that is autopilot. Like that's exactly autopilot emotionally. It's just showing up and going through it and never really feeling connected to yourself, connected to other people. And you do that as a response to your environment. You do that as a mechanism to protect yourself. Okay, so at work, being on autopilot emotionally, it means that you're sitting in meetings, you're nodding along, you're doing your tasks, but you're not really present. You feel kind of flat. You're just getting through the day, through the week, through the month, the quarter, the year. You have quote unquote very important things to get done, to complete, to execute, to manage. And any time that conflict comes up, you automatically either people please or overwork, which is either one actually I see quite a bit. And you could do both things. It's not like one person would do one and the other person would do the other. There are some people that depending on who they're interacting with, they're more likely to people please while they're still overworking. And that's kind of part of it, is that cycle, that vicious cycle. Because you want to people please, it's hard to say no. So you're going to add more things to your plate that you really should not. And you might also avoid criticism, avoid any kind of feedback, or avoid certain interactions, or avoid meetings, or avoid doing certain tasks because you feel overwhelmed or you feel, all these kinds of things that paralyze you, that have you stuck. It doesn't mean that you're not performing, you're not doing your job, but it may be that you're doing the wrong type of work, that you're busy, quote unquote, but um, you're not feeling truly productive because you're avoiding certain things that make you uncomfortable, either because it's new to you or because you don't really like them. And so you prefer to be able to do something where you can kind of check out emotionally instead of being in the moment intentional. So here you don't stop to ask yourself what you actually are thinking, or what do you need? What do you need? All right. Now, in a relationship, let's go with a different type of example. In a relationship, when you are on autopilot emotionally, your partner tells you about their day, and you might respond with, mm-hmm, mm, 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 or that's nice, but your mind is just somewhere else. Or you might not even turn your head over to them. You might not even make eye contact. You might not even have a reply. And you're not truly connecting. You're just responding, honestly, out of habit. And they can tell. They can really tell that you're not really there, that you're there physically, but you're not emotionally there. Now, let's go to another example just to keep understanding more and more what this autopilot really is, what it really looks like. Being on autopilot emotionally with yourself, right? Now, this is the relationship with yourself. You notice that you haven't really felt much all week. You're just busy, tired, not really enjoying things. Just feel like everything is so flat, boring. It's just you're going through your routines. There's nothing exciting. Um, your default whenever you feel stress is to either distract yourself. You may be scrolling, maybe you stay busy. Oh, that's something I do. I stay busy. Oh. And when I start just like staying really busy all the time, I realize, wait a minute, where's this coming from? So by all means, I am still figuring it out, and I'll raise my hand and hold myself accountable. Um, so instead of pausing to process what's really going on, we just keep doing the same. Whatever thing is in front of us, we go out of our way to look for things to do, actually. um, and it's just all a response to the environment, the people around us, the demands of the job. So there's a disconnect. That state of mind is just pure disconnect. The next thing to the next thing, the moment to moment, right? And then it turns into this recurring pattern. It's a coping mechanism, a defense mechanism, a coping strategy, whatever you want to call it. You're there physically, but emotionally, you're checked out. Okay. So now what? What do we do with all of this? Okay. Well, I say there is an opportunity here to be grounded in your leadership. There's an opportunity here to be present and be mindful. And all that means is to start to notice when you speak, see other people's reaction, try to understand their emotion, and do that as well for yourself. What are you noticing in your body? How does it feel when you're stressed? Start to notice your mannerisms. Notice when you're responding or reacting to an employee concern or an issue that you've heard a million times before and it frustrates you. But here you are doing a job And if you're in leadership, you have a responsibility. So be present. You can start today. Today, you can say, I am going to be intentional about being present. I'm going to allow myself to observe. And grounded leadership is, it's, I would say, like the ultimate goal, but it's an ongoing journey. It's not the end and you arrive and you're done, right? But it is certainly the outcome of transforming from being on an emotional autopilot system to a state of mind where you are far more mindful. And it's so different being in grounded leadership because it's far more intentional. You're not, reacting from your stress. You're acknowledging that you are at stress, but you process that and you make a decision to be intentional, to implement healthy habits, to work on your active listening. And that gives you confidence to be able to do the things and feel that you are in control. That's empowering. When you are operating from a values driven mindset, you feel far more calm because you don't have to question your integrity. You don't have to question if you're making the right moves. When you are on survival mode, when you're on autopilot, you burn out. It's just not sustainable at all. And there comes the micromanaging. So it matters. It matters to be self-aware, and it matters to work on your mental health because it impacts you as a human being. It impacts your relationships with your spouse, your friends, your significant other, everybody around you, not just you as the professional and your team at work, but it impacts everyone around you. And being grounded also helps build trust. So then it also helps you build trust with your team. It gives you clarity because you're operating from a place of awareness, knowing the what and the why and the how. And you get far more sustainable results that way. So I thought I was going to talk more about grounded leadership, and it turns out that I just went, you know, head first into autopilot and kept going on that. So I am being intentional about keeping my podcast episodes short enough. So I think I am going to make another episode later on specifically on grounded leadership, just to give you more examples on different aspects of your lives of what that looks like specifically. But I think you get a general idea with today's episode. So I also want to ask you before I go, I want you to think about this for just a minute. What's one decision that you've made recently on autopilot? If you can think back here in the last day, week, or month that you made that decision and you knew you were on autopilot, I want you to think about that. What was the situation? How did you feel? And I wonder if you had a gut feeling after you made the decision that it was the wrong one. Like it just didn't feel right. Or later on, you reflected and it somehow backfired, or you realized that it wasn't the right call. Now, the second part of the question is, what would it have looked like if you made it from a grounded place? If you had just stopped, taken a deep breath, think about the facts, think about this in a logical way. If you didn't go to the people pleasing or the, I just want to get this done, I'm impatient, I need to get to the next thing. If you had really just slowed down and made a decision from a grounded place, what would it have looked like? Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, take care of yourself and keep leading with intention.